Gentlemen and lady, we've gathered you here today for a mission of the utmost importance. As you know, the southern states have refused to relinquish their stranglehold on the slave trade in North America. It's a dark age for the United States. If we intend to move forward into a more enlightened era, we must make moves to disrupt slavery in the South and shuttle the enslaved to freedom. To that end, we're putting a team together. Nat Turner, our man on the inside. His guerrilla forces will shake the foundations of the South in Virginia. Codename, Rebel. John Brown. His Mormon abolitionists will break the flank in Kansas, making room for the movement to operate in the West. Codename, Old Man Murder. Harriet Tubman, the key figure in our plan. Her stealth skills allow her to infiltrate, extract, and disappear without anyone being any the wiser. Codename, Moses. And finally, Abraham Lincoln. His legal prowess will enable us to protect the fugitives once we get them to freedom. And in the future, we have big plans for him. Codename, Axeman. Together you will be the Underground Railroad.
Yay! We did it.
They got away.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Delete Everything Podcast. Our little, I don't know, what do? We keep doing the same one.
You didn't have a thing?
It's our underground
Railroad? Jesus.
It's ours.
Patrick
it's
is
different.
a little under the weather today.
I've been quite sick, but you know,
we'll excuse it this time.
My dedication to the people who listen to this show is, I mean, here I am. And I don't feel great. And literally 2 days ago, I had zero voice whatsoever. Like, could only speak in a whisper. So, but I'm here. And
Here, hand it over to me.
What?
Hey guys, welcome to Delete Everything. This is our little. This is our shining star leading us to freedom in the North. With me is my guide, Patrick Wall. I'm Riley Bowen.
Yeah. Now you got to do the give us ratings and reviews.
Yeah, you guys, come on. This isn't your first episode. You know,
Rate,
review, subscribe, Patreon.
Keep going.
God bless America. But welcome to part 2 of the Underground Railroad.
Wow, things are really taking a turn for the worst. I'm talking about my illness.
I thought you were talking about the
podcast.
the intense and dramatic situation in the South. As we enter the 1800s in America.
Yeah, also. You're going to start doing the A-Team song again?
Dun, 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 dun. I think that's Indiana Jones.
Oh, okay. That was Indiana Jones, wasn't it? Yeah. Well, so at any rate, I don't know how much I'm going to be talking. I'm going to talk, I mean, obviously, but I don't want to put myself in a situation where I start losing my voice again and then start coughing on the mic and just sounding like a miserable
It's okay.
puddle of mucus
No
like
pressure.
I have been.
No pressure, Riley.
Yeah, it's
No pressure, Riley.
my boy riding solo.
So, all right. So this is part 2 of the Underground Railroad. It's
Yes.
okay. I took a lot of fucking notes because, okay, I'll tell you, I thought that we were just going to do a 2-parter here, but that was with the anticipation that like everything, building up to the exciting stories of slaves escaping from the South would be in the first episode, and the second one would all be just like cool stories.
Yeah.
It completely escaped me that there would be even more world building. Like, there's exciting stuff happening in the North in Prohibition era state or prohibitionary abolitionist states.
Yeah, okay.
There's stuff going on in the East. There's shit going on the ocean. There are slave rebellions. There's fucking there's all kinds of wacky shit going on. So like, as much as I want to tell these cool individualist stories, I think we're going to save that for the next episode, and we're going to do a little more world building in a slightly different way.
Yeah, okay.
Now, well, we really want to dig into the dramatic and exciting stories. People being hunted, moving in the night, narrow escapes.
We're gonna do some of that today, or we're gonna do that.
We'll do a few of those today. We'll do a couple of fun things.
But then next week we're gonna do a big.
We're gonna do a Tales of the Underground Railroad.
Tales from the Underground Railroad.
Get your tickets. All aboard.
Choo choo.
We've avoided doing a single choo choo thus far.
Till now.
Okay, because, all right, so the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th is like the most crucial time to understand for where slavery's headed, the warring factions, the political climate, the passion that abolitionists had.
Late 17th is like the beginning of the country.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's interesting to try and think of it like this. So you had, like, a lot of chattel slavery under the British already.
Right, yes, for several hundred years before.
And then after the Revolutionary War, a lot of people are like, cool, we did it. We have freedom. Now everyone can be free. Am I right?
Wow. Yeah, because there were a lot of black soldiers
involved in the Revolutionary War. They're like, fuck yeah, we're fighting for freedom in general.
And
then after the war, not so much.
Yeah. Well, you're still slaves. You're just different.
Hey, thanks for fighting. Here's an extra serving of beans.
That belong to a different country.
Get back in the field?
Jesus Christ.
Exactly. So, yeah, the passion that abolitionists had for freedom, especially right after the Revolutionary War, and, like, just the fucking iron grip that slave owners had on the American economy at the time, especially with the Industrial Revolution, the cotton gin, shit like that.
For sure.
Right, so it's a time, the late 1700s and the early 1800s, it's a time where hundreds of years of pretty straightforward stasis in terms of cultural change is coming to an end.
Okay.
Technology's changing, the country's expanding, the attitude of the people is evolving, education is like infecting the impressionable youth of America, infecting them with the festering disease of empathy, and and there's just a lot of compassion coming out of the people that were in the American Revolution.
Right.
So a lot of America was like, okay, so we fought to the death for freedom, but we're still keeping slaves.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like the British, which did not sit well with people very well at all.
Well, I mean, yeah, it didn't sit well with Thomas Jefferson, but he still kept the slaves.
Slave rapist. Yeah.
What I'm saying is he still kept. You know what I mean? Like that was a thing that was sort of, again, talking about sort of the dichotomy of some of these people. Like, you're looking at the writer of the American founding documents,
the America Papers.
The America Papers.
Yeah, no, that's hugely like if you look at that exact case, like
the main author of the United States Bill of Rights.
Yeah, somebody who is so conflicted as to whether or not like he should be owning slaves, who
had several papers about how it probably wasn't cool and definitely wasn't fair, and flew in the face of these documents that he'd just written for this new burgeoning fucking country that he fought to create.
Yeah, but people like him are like, well, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah.
It's not like we can just free them all.
But who's going to make my porridge in the morning?
Yeah, well, who's going to fix my trousers?
Jesus Christ.
Who am I going to fuck?
How am I going to get firewood? How am I going to get firewood? How am I going to get rid of this wood?
Oh, God. Well, actually, so like that is my first point, actually, is leading to talking about people that might be like sympathetic to the idea of freedom, but like we can't just not have slaves right off the bat.
Well, and there was a lot of feelings like if we just let them all free, then what are they going to do to us?
Well, there's that. There's definitely that in a way, but I think that is more of like a fear-mongering kind of like that's an excuse to keep slaves kind of thing.
Well, yeah, for sure.
Well, if we let them go, they'll just kill us.
Yeah, it's justification for it.
Yeah, I mean that's the same thing as like you need religion because if you're without
who was
God,
the comedian that
you'd be a murderer.
Who was the comedian that did the joke that was like the last day of slavery?
Ooh, I don't know.
And he's like, oh, okay, gather around, everybody, gather around. Well, we had a good run, and I can't remember who it was, but I don't
remember that one either.
Pretty funny shit though.
So at this time, the government was moving really fast, post-Revolutionary War, and policies are getting passed all over the place. Like especially in northern states, to curtail slavery.
Okay.
So like bit by bit, you got each individual state doing their own little referential. Like, okay, so maybe you can have slaves, but you can't beat them, or
let's keep it under 50, guys.
Yeah, or like there's
be reasonable.
There's some policies that are like if you're born to a slave mother, you're only a slave until you're like 28. or something like weird little we'll cut the line here. You know, like the Dred Scott case,
right?
Which, if you don't know, said that a slave was only 3/4 of a person.
Yeah, 3/5.
3/5 of a person. Shit, sorry.
That's okay.
It was 3/5 of a person, so you had to get a few of them together to make a whole person, but they still couldn't vote.
Yeah.
So what was it? But like when you're counting population, they're not like a whole human.
You get 15 slaves together, you got 3 people.
Yeah, but 3/5 was 3/5 more than they were before that judgment.
I guess so.
You know. But Pennsylvania passed the Act for Gradual Abolition of Slavery on March 1st, 1780.
Okay.
So it was only 4 years after the Revolution.
No, the Revolutionary War ended on 83.
Oh, shit, sorry, I'm fucking...
But we had already declared our independence, but we were still fighting war.
Right, yeah, so
it's a weird...
after the Declaration
It's like
of
when you get in a
Independence.
new relationship, and like at first you're just seeing each other, and then you become like exclusive. When's your anniversary? Is it when you guys first started like going out and seeing each other?
It's finger
Or is it when you
penetration.
said, is that it?
Finger penetration is when you start the process of talking about anniversary.
Oh, I have news for my wife then. Shit. I got to change some things up.
But so in March 1st, 1780, Pennsylvania passed the Act for the Gradual Abolition.
Mm.
This was the first law of its kind in the United States to, do anything really regarding slaves. It was the first law passed regarding the treatment of slaves in the United States.
Okay.
But the act prohibited the import of enslaved people into Pennsylvania.
Right.
It required slaveholders to register their slaves.
Okay.
It declared that all children born in Pennsylvania after the act were free.
Okay.
It required children born to enslaved mothers to serve an indentured servitude until they were 28.
Okay.
And it provided freedom dues and other privileges to freed slaves. Freedom due is like, wages.
Oh.
Yeah.
Payment.
Yeah, so here's
Payment for your work.
You've been a slave for some odd years. Here's a few bucks for that. Right?
Was it retroactive? Like your entire...
Depending on like the region in which it was done, it'd be like, here's $20 because you worked for 20 years, you know?
Oh, well.
Some shit like that.
Party time.
But the act was a model for other northern states to follow when they were passing their own abolition laws. We've mentioned that the Quakers were big movers in the Underground Railroad.
Yes.
Pennsylvania is well known for its long history of sheltering religious groups like the Amish, the Mennonites, Pennsylvania Dutch, and the Quakers.
Mm-hmm.
The Quakers were not shy about pushing for and endorsing these new laws.
Okay.
For instance, this is
a lot
fun.
of inflection on instance.
This is a lot of fun for me. I like this one a lot.
Okay.
I'm going to read some stuff.
I'm ready for it.
So in 1786, Philip Dalby, a shopkeeper in Alexandria, Virginia, complained about Quakers suing for the freedom of an enslaved man he took on a business trip to Philadelphia.
Okay.
In a letter titled, "A Caution to All Travelers to Philadelphia," published in the Virginian Journal and Alexandria Advertiser on March 30th, 1786, Philip Dalby complains thus.
Oh, boy.
So, okay, I'm going to read. I've edited this letter. It's a long letter.
Okay.
It's a long-ass letter. But I'm going to read Philip Dalby's very sincere complaints about
I'm sure they're...
when he took a slave to a free state and the people said, "Hey,
we
what
don't like
the fuck, man?" A caution to all travelers to Philadelphia from the southern states. Messrs. Richards and Company. Through the channel of your paper, I wish to lay before the public the several steps taken by a set of men in Pennsylvania in a prosecution commenced against me in that state by a slave of mine at their instigation under a pretense that he is entitled to his freedom, but illegally deprived of it by me and held in bondage.
That's exactly how slavery works.
Yeah. I think I'm inflecting properly with the right sarcasm on this one. Too.
Yeah,
he's a smarmy cunt.
You just defined slavery. Thanks for getting that out of the way.
Hence it will appear that every person in the southern states possessed of slaves is deeply interested in these proceedings and the determination which may be ultimately given in them. For, should businesses or curiosity lead any of them to Philadelphia, they may find themselves very unexpectedly plunged into the same embarrassment which I was, much to my surprise, involved in,
so surprised.
and from which I am not yet extricated.
He's got to go back for court.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to go back. He's got a court date.
Before I give a detail of the facts which immediately concern myself, it will be necessary to inform you and the public that there is a society established in Pennsylvania for the purpose of aiding and assisting all those unhappy persons who are cruelly and unjustly detained in bondage.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
Wow.
Yes. I am to inform you that in the month of February 1785, business called me to Philadelphia. I took with me as a waiter a mulatto boy,
God.
a slave for life, purchased for my use the January before by Mr. John Nicholson of Dr. Belt Leesburg. The boy was soon after my arrival accosted by some of the agents employed by the committee and informed that a fair opportunity now presented him of procuring his liberty, if he would avail himself of it, which he for some time declined.
I wonder why.
But, having been guilty of a small theft, he was apprehended and, previous to examination, brought before me. I ordered him a corporal punishment in presence of the persons he'd plundered, who thereupon discharged him from further prosecution. The chastisement seemed to inflame him, and he then applied to the committee for their assistance to procure his freedom.
So he stole something.
So
got brought before his master.
So his
master then
this guy's slave was accused of stealing.
Beaten in front of the shopkeeper.
Who said,
"Okay,
hey, whoa, quit beating that kid." And then the slave went, "You know what? I think I am going to go talk to those people who said something about me getting the fuck away from this guy."
Yeah, wild. What a wild story, this guy.
So, the day preceding my departure, the boy was again brought before the committee, who carried him to their counsel, who, undertaking his case that evening, served me with an habeas corpus, commanding my attendance at Judge Bryan's chambers the next morning. I was much at a loss how to conduct myself, or what steps were necessary for me to take on this occasion. We accordingly waited upon the judge, and found at his chambers the committee and their counsel. The return was made upon the writ, and my claim to the boy stated, if not fully discussed, before the judge, who, not choosing singly to determine upon so intricate a point, adjourned the business till the next morning, to be heard at the Chief Justice's chambers before the Chief Justice himself.
So the judge said, "No, we're gonna throw this up to the next guy.
We'll up to the next guy. This is a bigger deal.
Yeah.
It's a man's life. We're gonna maybe take it up to." My claim was again stated, and the judges fully informed of what alone was sufficient to have ended the business: that I was an inhabitant of another state, that the point that they were examining into did not depend on the laws of Pennsylvania, but upon the laws of Virginia, of which state the boy had been many years an inhabitant.
Yeah, but you cross state lines with if weed is legal in Colorado and I bring it to Florida, I could still get in trouble.
Yes.
And get my weed seized from me.
Yes.
So, that's funny how states work. State laws work. Hey, didn't one side of the country fight a whole war for states' rights?
Not yet. This is 1786.
Isn't a whole side of the country going to fight a war over states' rights?
Pretty soon. Wait, 100 years from now.
What side of the country does this guy live on?
The states' right side.
The side that was real all about states' rights?
Virginia.
Yeah. So he should understand.
We'll get into some more Virginia a little bit later. The judges, after hearing the parties, came to a resolution that it should receive a solemn determination at the April term, and I was compelled to give bond and security in the sum of £100 to have the boy forthcoming at the day of the trial, and the committee directed to give bond in the sum of £50 in case the determination should be in my favor, to pay the cost of the suit.
Uh-huh.
So they're like,
you gotta pay court costs.
Yeah, you gotta pay court costs, and you gotta bring this kid back in April. But nothing short of absolute and immediate freedom to the boy would be attended to. I was informed that if I did not come into these terms, he would render the prosecution so weighty as to cost me more than the value of the boy in defending my claim to him. This appeared to me oppressive in the highest degree. I, however, chose to support.
He is being oppressed in the highest degree, huh?
Get this. This is the best part of the whole thing, because we're getting to the end of the letter.
Okay. The amount of just tone deafness here is staggering.
Yeah, but this is
fucking mind blowing.
It's exactly what you were talking about with with Jefferson, right? I don't believe in slavery, but I've got slaves. It's just how it is, Right. In short, through the whole examination, I found that nothing but absolute and immediate freedom to the boy would be accepted on any part of the committee, and that if I refused to gratify them in this particular, all the artifice and chicanery, all the plague and vexation with which the law is so horribly clogged, would be put in practice and exerted against me, and that so abundantly that I had reason to fear that I should be at last overwhelmed with the weight of it, and then driven into compliance with their measures. So essentially, he's like, Look at these motherfuckers bullying me into giving up my slaves. I'm a victim.
And if I don't show up, they're going to charge me more than what I even paid for the guy.
Charge me money for my human that I own.
Jesus Christ.
He's mine.
As the judge, I would almost be afraid to send him back with this kid and be like, come back in April.
Because this kid's going to get beaten to death or some shit. Or like hung or like,
What are the odds? I mean, just knowing what we know about what happened, and I don't know specifically how this guy treated his slaves, but we know enough about how a lot of people treated their slaves. Like, there are decent odds that this kid doesn't make it to next April.
Right?
I mean, that's Jesus Christ.
When I got home, I found I was too late to execute the commission in time for the April term. This put me under the necessity of paying a continuance until the October term, which was granted. When the October term came on, the commission, having executed, and the slavery of the boy fully and clearly proved by persons of undoubted character, I sent the boy up to be present at the trial, agreeable to my bond, in full expectation of having an end put to this very troublesome business. But to my great mortification, it was again put off till the next April term.
Oh my God.
So these guys are just tying him up in court shit.
Yeah, but at the same time, is the slave with the owner, or is he still in Pennsylvania?
He's being like shuttled back.
He's with the owner, because he just said he sent him there. So you're also extending the amount of time that this kid is a slave.
The matter now stands for a hearing at the April term. From this state of facts, some of which are sufficient to rouse the indignation of every person not warped by prejudice, it appears clearly that the matter of right is not the inquiry of those honest, well-meaning men, the committee, but the accomplishment of their measures by any means whatsoever, and that they pay no regard to the injury or injustice they are guilty of towards an individual.
Oh my God.
This boy I found in slavery, and purchased him agreeable to the laws of Virginia, and have as absolute a right to his service during life as I have to the use of the coat which is on my back.
Whoa.
And have as just a right to complain if deprived of that service as I should have were I robbed of my coat.
Oh my God, what?
But behold the consequence. A set of men to whom I have no knowledge, with whom I have no connection, tell me that I must discharge him from my service, and for what, pray? Why, truly, for no other good reason than to gratify their pride and self-love, and perhaps furnish a subject of eulogy to their characteristic meaning, and a desire to be thought better men and members of society than others. But does their conduct in this instance...
Or maybe because he's a human being and not a fucking coat?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bring this too far into the present day, but there's a lot of, he's like, they're just virtue signaling. They just want to seem like they're better people, which I think is a funny way to say, like, they just want to like act like they're good, which is like, if that's how you pretend to act good, wouldn't good people not have slaves?
Yeah, no shit, right?
Is that the admission?
Yeah.
That's the admission there, right?
It sounds like it.
Have they not, in the most wanton and unprovoked manner, seized upon my property, and run me to an expense far greater than the value of that property in supporting my right thereto? My expenses arising from my detention in Philadelphia when the habeas corpus when the habeas corpus was first served upon me, the seeing of counsel, the execution of the commission for the examination of my witness, sending the boy up to Philadelphia, procuring a person to take charge of him at the October term, have arisen far above £50. And my next trip cannot cost me less than £25, besides neglecting my other business. This is an oppression too great a burden, too heavy for an individual to bear, and calls aloud for the interposition of government. Can a conduct which produces consequences so oppressive and injurious be dictated by truly good heart? Can the actors be doing as they would be done by?
Wow.
I think not. And I cannot help concluding that the whole of this proceeding has been dictated by a vain, bigoted pride and a love of ostentation, and not by a truly benevolent principle.
Holy shit.
One last part. This is
I just, like I said, fucking mind-blowing how tone-deaf this fucking guy is, talking about the life of another human that he owns.
Yep. And it's like these
bigots.
These guys, they're bigoted against me because I'm from the South.
God damn.
Right. Last part. I am as much disposed to lament the hard fate of any set of men who are doomed to groan under the galling yokes of slavery as any of the worthy judges or members of the noble-minded committee. And when they can effect a general liberation of the black host, which darkens the state of Virginia, I will forget my loss and partake with them in the joy and exaltation which would result from an act so glorious and so ornamental to humankind.
Oh, wow.
That is him very clearly stating.
I'll get rid of my slaves when everybody else gets rid of their slaves, and then we can all have a fucking party.
That's exactly. Once he gets rid of all, well, they say no more slaves at all, then I won't have slaves.
Then I'll be totally fine with it.
I'll say that's great. I'm glad we don't.
Jesus Christ. Also, I want to point out, I think the term mulatto is not very much used in modern vernacular.
Yeah, it's a cookie, right?
That means a child who is half black parentage and half white parentage, which in slaveholding Virginia just raises a lot of questions.
Doesn't it, though? I mean, he did say
half black, half white, born into slavery?
He did say he bought the kid, but the origins of that child are going to be only probably one thing.
Yeah. Yes. A very
which is
Thomas Jefferson-esque problem.
Which is obviously the star-crossed love story of a wealthy white boy and a intelligent and feisty slave girl that attempt to live their love together, but are forced apart by the cruel hands of fate. Wait, no, rape is what it is. It's rape.
The son of a slaveholder raped a slave.
Yeah, that's exactly.
She got pregnant.
So,
and then that child was probably shuffled off immediately as soon as it was born to someone else, and then.
Yeah,
somehow ended up in this guy's
the baby
hands.
was born, and the slave owner went, "Goo, ship him on down the road real quick." Yeah, it's appropriate to say that Philip Dalby of Alexandria, Virginia, is a bag of shit, and I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, giant flapping twat.
Yeah, so this is only 10 years after the Declaration of Independence is signed, and it's only 3 years after the Treaty of Paris, marking the end of the Revolutionary War. So the first anti-slavery laws were passed essentially immediately following the United States being uncontested as a sovereign nation. So that means slavery is some England shit. Yeah. Un-American. Fuck England. Thanks for the slaves, jerks. In any case, let's have a little discussion. Would it be fair to say that a person in this kind of spot would consider themselves like a good person? Like, do you think Dalby would actually support the abolition of slavery, or was he just absolutely full of shit?
No, I think he's absolutely full of shit.
Right, but like, does he think that? Does he think that, like, oh yeah, no, if the
you're
slaves
asking if he's convinced himself if all the slaves were free that he'd be fine with it?
Yeah,
probably.
Apropos of nothing, I have been considering lately people's motivations internally.
Okay,
and like, how do I say, if you're doing something bad for what you believe is a good cause, do you truly think you're doing something good, or internally are you just real quietly in the back of your head going, evil, 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 evil?
We could sit here and try and dissect people's motivations.
Tell
for
me
things
the secrets
all
of the
fucking
human
day.
heart, Patrick.
Cheese, I think, is a big one.
Cheese?
Cheese is up there. Sex, cheese and sex, probably. That's all we care about, fundamentally.
Yeah, I think that's what I read. Yeah.
Yeah, you've read the same books as me. So I think that he's probably convinced himself. But the thing about people who make these sort of excuses and just flippantly throw around some of the words that he used in that letter, while also having slaves, we have to assume that it's more than just this one. Those type of people, when the cards are down, that attitude shifts real fucking quickly.
Yeah, absolutely.
The chances are he was not alive in 1861, but were he to be alive, I'm guessing he would probably be all gung-ho secession.
Do you think rhetoric in the South, like in wealthy circles, was something like, like this I'll support freedom when it's wholesale sort of thing, like he's talking about? Or were they like, we'll always have slaves?
I mean, I'm sure it varied. There were certainly slaveholders in the South that were brutal fucking racist pieces of shit. Mm-hmm. And there were probably some that took on a more Jeffersonian sort of like, well, we have them, and, but how else are we going to get all these crops and do all these things? And,
Who else will bring me my wine?
Yeah, exactly. So it's fucking tricky, man. It's tricky talking about this shit. Like we talked about this a lot in the first episode. It's fucking like it's impossible to put yourself in that place. Like empathy be damned. You can't really fully fucking understand, but like, so the only context that we have to look at it from is like modern day, but it's still insane to even try.
I'm curious as to what point, like, polite society in, like, Virginia and South Carolina and shit, when they're doing the, like, well, yes, perhaps one day the dark man will be freed and we'll be toasting them and their freedom. And, there's little, like...
But like I said, probably for every person who thought that way, I guarantee you there was someone else, next door neighbor or somebody in the same town that was, well, if we set them all free, then what will they do?
Well, yeah,
they've been oppressed for so long.
Well, I'd be curious as to what point, like, you get your... I don't know, balls. I get like the dances that they'd have in Charleston or some shit. I don't know what the fuck people do in Virginia, but like
fancy get-togethers.
Yes, fancy. But like their little
social
talks,
gatherings,
their little
and
talks
such.
of like one day we won't need to enslave these poor devils, and then
now boy, bring me my coat.
But immediately upon like the first challenge to that, all of that rhetoric would immediately be like, well, what would they do without us?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like. So as much as this guy has sort of put this postscript on his on this insane narrative that he is the one who's being
it's the most like I'm the victim.
The injustice is happening to him, and then he puts this postscript there that's like, well, I mean, if all the slaves were to go away, then I would be just as happy as anyone else, and we would all like as much as he's trying to spin that shit. Like I said, people who can sort of justify these sorts of things and put this fucking cutesy little bullshit paragraph at the bottom of a long letter of just insanity, that I feel like those type of people can very easily, when the cards are on the table, they go, yeah, you know what? Even if it makes them look full of shit, yeah, I don't want to.
Yes,
I changed my mind.
No, not like this though.
Yeah, no, I'm allowed to change my mind. I changed it.
Pause for a second. So by 1793. You get the first mention of a Fugitive Slave Act.
Okay.
Which is something that was passed through multiple states of the Union in general.
Which was
no
matter where your runaway slave went.
Yeah, if your slave runs away, we can send a slave hunter. Right?
No matter where they are, even if they're in free states, we can go apprehend them and bring them back forcibly.
Right. So in 1793, you can surmise that enslaved folks are already making their escape from the formal transatlantic slave trade. News of freedom was available in Canada. That's like the news of that spread in the U.S. as a result of the War of 1812.
Now, Canada at this time was still part of England, yes?
Yeah, and remained so for a very long time.
But England had already abolished slavery.
Yeah, exactly. English abolished slavery. English.
England abolished early 1800s or late 1700s?
It was the late 1700s. I want to say 17...
I can get you that info.
I got it written down here somewhere.
Oh, do you?
Let me shuffle through my notes.
No, you don't have to do that.
Okay. But, so we had the War of 1812 over some territories in Canada, right?
Uh-huh. So, no, England was 1834.
1834, really?
33 was when they passed it. 84 is when it took I'm sorry, 1834 was when they passed it. 1830. God damn it. 1833 was when they passed it. 1834 was when it went into effect. And
in general,
that's when they ended slavery.
You've got a lot of abolitionist sentiment going on in England. You got a lot going on in the colonies in America.
Yes.
In Canada.
Yes.
Abolition is the flavor of the day.
Well, I mean,
except for, of course, 1793, the passing of the Fugitive Slave Act.
Yeah, and all of the people who owned slaves.
By 1818, Canada was refusing to extradite refugees of slavery who reached that point. So, like, slavery might still be legal in, like, the British Empire.
Yeah.
At that point, if you were a slave coming from America,
we talked about this last week.
America could suck a bag of dicks.
Yeah, you're not getting your slave back.
No, you're not getting shit. Yeah. And they're free now, and we'll give them money.
Yeah, whatever we can do to fuck you guys over.
Hey, slaves, come on up as much as you want.
Yeah.
So most learned upon arrival to bordering territories that Ohio and Michigan were participating free land in certain parts of their state as well. But the story of the Underground Railroad and where, like, the name comes from, there's a legend about it.
Kentucky, right? Some slave railroad in Kentucky?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Yes, it was from Kentucky and into Ohio.
Okay.
So it was a man.
that was a huge crossing.
Right. So the fugitives.
Boone County, Kentucky.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean the Ohio River.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that was like one of because of the wilderness and everything in Kentucky, and being able to cross the Ohio River, and immediately as soon as you step foot on the other side, you're in Ohio and you're free.
It's a very clearly delineated. We talked about this on our last episode, I believe. The clear delineation that rivers have.
Yes.
You know, there's so many states, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, where rivers delineate your crossing. Right. So in 1831, a Kentucky enslaved man named Tice Davids made a break for the free state of Ohio by swimming across the Ohio River. His master trailed close behind in a boat and watched Davis wash ashore. When he looked again, Davis was nowhere to be found. The most agreed upon folklore and myth suggests that David's master returned to Kentucky in a rage, exclaiming to his friends that David's must have gone off on an underground road.
Yeah.
And the name stuck, and the legend of the Underground Railroad was born. It's difficult to say what happened to Tice Davids. We want to believe that he lived out his days on free soil, but the likelihood is that in Ohio in the 1830s, it was still pretty rough. Almost immediately after Ohio achieved statehood, the Ohio Black Codes were adopted, placing heavy restrictions on black residents and laborers.
Jesus.
By 1807, if you were black living in Ohio, you had to pay a residency fee, register with the county clerk, have a white Ohioan as a sponsor, and whether born free or not, secure and travel with freedom papers, all under penalty of arrest, fines, or expulsion from the state.
Yeah.
As a black person in Ohio, you also had to contend with the fact that you could not engage in civil or military service, vote, attend publicly funded schools, and or testify in court against a white person.
God almighty.
That's a rough one.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't. So even if
you're free, but I mean, let's not get carried away.
Even if you were accosted or robbed by a white person, you weren't allowed to say anything about it.
Right. You couldn't go to court and be like, this guy took everything from me.
Yeah. So 1835, this is a good one. In 1835 and 1838, respectively, New York and Philadelphia created vigilance committees.
Hey, respectfully.
1835, okay. 1835, respectfully.
Fucking shit, yeah, respectfully.
So Philadelphia and New York created vigilance committees to protect escaped enslaved people from bounty hunters.
Okay.
Vigilance committees.
That seems like a good thing.
It is. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Vigilance committees are essentially neighborhood watches.
So they're like, come here, black person, just shh.
Yes. A lot of the time, vigilant forces were oftentimes like lynch mobs. The KKK was a vigilance committee.
Yeah.
Or KKK was like a network of vigilance committees with the express purpose of keeping an eye out for blacks and Mexicans and Jews.
Right. When you first said vigilance committee, I was ready for something horrific, but this is a good one.
It's the other end of that spectrum.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hiding runaway slaves from slave hunters.
The original, hiding runaway slaves from slave hunters, exactly.
It's a good one.
Did you know that the KKK originally also was into the persecution of Catholics?
I mean...
Filthy papists. But in 1835 and 1838, respectively, in New York and Philadelphia, they had vigilance committees set for specifically stopping slave catchers and to protect freed slaves.
Okay.
So since the initial passing of laws to outlaw the importation of slaves and give them freedom under northern laws, which was immediately contested, like with Philip, what's-his-fuck? It was left to northern...
the letter we read earlier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Fucking, what's his dick? The fucking shitbag, fuckbag.
The twat guy.
Twat cunt from fucking Virginia.
Yeah.
Virginia shitbag.
Virginia shitbag.
Philip K. Dickhole. So it was left to northern abolitionists to get a little more like violent in their approach towards abolition.
Okay.
Because slave catchers are coming regardless of the laws.
Right.
It's traditionally hard to stop a man who's like bent on capturing another man without using violence.
Well, when he's white and on horseback and can cross state lines without any problems, and
it's like
probably has a gun and a whip and some other things.
If you're a guy on a horse,
a posse.
If you're on a guy on a horse with a gun who's traveling across state lines to find a man and bring them back with you,
usually those guys are.
You don't usually do it with a song in your heart. You know, it's a little less. That song is like, I'm going to fucking kill him.
Yeah. Those guys are like, hi, I'm here looking for Marcus Washington. Has anybody seen Marcus? No? Okay, I guess I'll head back.
Oh, that's him right there. Get on the ground!
I guess I'll head back to Alabama then. Thanks for your time.
I mean, like, so, like, if a man's bent on capturing another man,
where the hell's Marcus Washington?
Especially when that person sees themselves as like an agent of the law,
which they weren't.
Well, not necessarily. No,
they were bounty hunters.
Yes, bounty hunters, but
under the protection of the law.
Under the protection of the law. So if you're going to another state, you might be
like that.
Maybe you're like a free agent, but you're going to uphold the law of another state.
Right.
Right.
What are the necessary certifications for that?
A lawless land, the lawless land of Pennsylvania.
Ohio.
This savage land.
I mean, Ohio's still pretty fucking lawless, but but what are the certifications for this? You just get a slave owner says, hey, you're the guy. Go.
Yeah, usually you'd be kind of a creepy guy, and a slave owner would be like, hey, you're kind of creepy. You want to go catch my runaway slave?
Hey, you like beating up black people, don't you?
You seem dangerous.
You enjoy the subjugation of humans,
Would
right?
you want to go track down a human being for money? Like what is that person? Well, that person just wants to be.
Do you post something on like a bulletin board? Somewhere?
Looking for a bag of shit to take money for like war crime.
Must love travel, subjugation of humans.
Must love dogs.
Jesus Christ.
Particularly baying hounds. Well, the business of bounty hunting's traditionally been the realm of like outlaws and gunslingers and pretty much just like violent and scary
ex-criminals.
people.
They're all ex-criminals.
Well, these days, bounty hunters is sort of thought of as like an extrajudicial police force.
Ex-criminals. Still.
For the most part, yeah. You know,
who's the most famous bounty hunter you know?
Tim Valley.
Has he ever been arrested?
Many times.
Yeah. Who's the other most famous bounty hunter you know?
Dog the bounty hunter?
Yeah, and what's his background?
I would assume being a dog at one point.
No, his whole thing is he was in prison for a very long time for like attempted murder or some shit like that.
Oh, tracks.
Yeah, he was
attempting to murder his hairstyle. Jesus.
He was a shitty human being who was in prison.
Yeah, you get a lot of those.
Yeah.
But I mean, these days, if you see like a bounty hunter is usually after somebody who skipped bail or a bond or something, they've got like sort of like an extrajudicial police force thing about them. They wear like, bulletproof vests and they have badges and all that kind of shit.
But I mean, I think even now you need like some sort of certification to be that, right?
Well, yeah, of course.
You don't just get hired off the street.
Yeah, but it's something you just pay for, really.
Okay.
Your certification is like, I paid like $200 to be this.
To go find people who are skirting the law.
But that's the image, like the image of like the extrajudicial police force is exactly the image that be most readily presented all across like modern history into like the Wild West. Like most Wild West bounty hunters, they'd have a marshal's badge or a legal documentation showing that they were representatives of a court or...
Yeah, but back then, I mean, like, especially in the West, to be the marshal of like you want to be the marshal of or the sheriff of Dodge City,
you had to be close enough to the dead marshal to get his badge.
They'd be like, oh, you're a pretty good gunslinger. You want to be the sheriff? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
all right, you're the sheriff now. That was it.
There you go. Careful.
That was the interview process.
Be real careful.
Yeah.
Slave catchers were the same.
Fifth one this year.
Slave catchers were no different, except they were like hired guns with contracts from private citizens instead of court orders.
Okay.
So instead of being hired by a judge or a sheriff, they're often just like Cousin Jerry, be like down to go hunt down a slave in Ohio for $50 or something.
Must love travel.
Yeah. But that meant they were only legally protected by the laws of the state they were coming from, and traveling across state lines on a vigilante mission to retrieve stolen property is kind of dodgy in the best of circumstances.
Sure.
Even if it's like somebody stole my Trans Am and I'm traveling to Georgia to fucking find them and get my shit back. Like you do that now and you tell a cop that that's what you're doing and you've got a gun on you, they're going to be like, get the fuck out of here. No, absolutely not. Yeah, you file paperwork. But if like in the circumstance that you're going to find a human, you're more likely to have like the local law after you than trying to help you. So when these slave catchers show up in your town,
well, yeah, you could argue that in a free state, in a time where abolitionism is sort of getting more and more popular.
Abolitionism.
I may have made that word up. I
don't think that's a word.
Well, it is now. They all have to come from somewhere.
Abolitionistary.
It would stand to reason that some of the people, in law enforcement would be, allies to that.
Which?
To abolition.
Oh yeah, 100%.
In a free state during a time where we've got more and more sentiment toward freeing slaves.
Yeah,
and you're in a more progressive area that's like, we don't have slaves. Why do you guys have slaves?
Yeah,
that the law, I mean, I'm sure there were some law enforcement people who were like, fuck it, we should have them too.
Well, it's like if put it like this. If Louisiana still had slavery, right?
Mm-hmm.
And somebody showed up.
Not hard to imagine.
Not hard to imagine. But like somebody showed up, here in St. Augustine, Florida, looking for a slave that's escaped Louisiana.
Yeah.
We'd be hard pressed not to say, hey, get the fuck out of here, man.
You just told everybody my origin story.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
That's why I'm here, man.
But yeah, so like a slave catcher shows up, and it was already really hard to travel at this time. I mean, maybe take a train or something. Well, there weren't that many trains.
No.
So, but they show up, they're dangerous, they're probably hungry, they're dirty from the road, and they're cagey, and they're suspicious, and most of all, impossible to deter because they don't get paid unless they return with the escaped slave.
Even if they're dead.
Yeah, exactly.
You still get paid if they're dead.
Yeah.
I think you even would get paid if you like just beat the shit out of them and left them there. Like if you found them, even if you didn't come back with them, you could still get paid.
Yeah, if you brought like their fingers or some shit. Like that's like it's that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, okay, you get paid this much if you bring them back fully, okay. Bring them back like this dead, you get this much. Bring back their fucking head, you get this. Bring back their fingers, you get this.
Jesus Christ.
Just a good account from an honest person and a notary that says that you beat the living piss out of them. We'll give you this. But like
this honest sadist brought back all their fingers.
It might pose a risk, but if they couldn't find the exact person, they'd find someone that looked an awful lot like them, and if that person protested too hard, they still get half the pay for returning a dead body without a face. So,
God damn.
Yeah. And these are dangerous-ass people. So, when in Philadelphia and New York, you've got literal, like, vigilante committees who are like, yeah, we really got to do something about these fucking bounty hunters showing up.
And naturally, there's not a lot of ways that don't involve violence.
Yeah, there are enough of these motherfuckers roaming around out there that the governing bodies of the two largest and wealthiest metropolitan cities on the east coast of North America formed militias to combat them.
Jesus.
And that's a trend that continued in Boston and Providence and other larger cities of the North. That in itself is like, it's just a fucking dope-ass scene, like, in my head.
It's kind of badass.
In my head movies.
Yeah, that's pretty badass.
Well, like the bedraggled slave catcher coming up against the vigilante committee that included, like, black men and women, like, in the streets of Boston or some shit.
I wonder,
They're all like, hey, you get the fuck out of here.
Would have been different if I was there. I wonder,
is that Mark Wahlberg being a slave catcher?
Yeah, no, he's being a vigilante. He's on the vigilante squad. My brain goes to this place where, like, once these vigilantes committees like started catching on and being more prevalent and stuff, how many of these slave catchers would be like, all right, so we got to like be real low key and like try and figure out ways to like infiltrate without. You got to imagine in the early days, they just show up on horseback and be like, "Where's the slave?
Yeah, you give him to me."
I guess they'd be like, "Where's the slave?"
This time they'd come and be like, "Hey, has anybody come across a gentleman named?"
He's won a sweepstakes.
He's about yay tall. He's got skin's more like you, not like me.
He's got we're not here for anything bad. We're going to give him a lot of money, and he's won a free house.
He's my wife's cousin, twice removed.
Jesus Christ.
We're trying to get him to another, even freer state.
God.
Virginia, never heard of it. So in Boston, in the 1830s, when they formed their own vigilance committees, they'd meet at a place called Faneuil Hall.
Okay.
Faneuil Hall is like a pretty famous building in general. As part of it was one of the older like big marketplace buildings. Multiple story.
Faneuil, like Daniel with a TH.
Faneuil.
F-A-N. Like Daniel with an F.
F-A-N-E-U-I-L. Faneuil.
Okay. Faneuil
Hall.
This episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you do $500 in bets this week, you get an additional $300 to put down on your favorite team. But with the Super Bowl coming up, you got to get on that. FanDuel.com. Thank you, guys.
Abolitionists met at Faneuil Hall in Boston in the 1830s and formed the Committee of Vigilance and Safety to take all measures that they shall deem expedient to protect the colored people of this city in the enjoyment of their lives and liberties.
Okay.
Yeah, this is like...
I don't love the words colored people in there, but, it was the times.
I swear to God,
it was the times.
After already doing an episode and a half's worth of research where everything's just like, kill the Negro.
Yeah.
Like, having just like one group of Bostonians being like, not
colored
here.
people.
Not here.
We're calling them colored people
Calling
now.
them coloreds and we're protecting them here, okay?
They're wicked welcome over here, okay?
The coloreds are A-OK in Boston, which is, as we know, still the case. So the Abolitionists New York Committee of Vigilance and the Vigilante Commission of Philadelphia were also established in the 1830s, we mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
They assisted fugitive slaves in the Underground Railroad. So, like, not only would they stop slave catchers, but also, if you could make your way to the Vigilante Commission in Philadelphia, they would also move you further north or set you up in, like, a freer place, or even to Canada, if it came down to it.
Nice. Between
1850 and 1860, following the passage of the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, which was another one... an even meaner one.
That was a real bad one.
Yes, that was
pretty much the there's nowhere safe.
Because shortly after 1860, there's something about slavery happened. I don't know. Not too long after that, pot was bubbling.
Shit really starts popping off.
So, after the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, professional bounty hunters began swarming through northern states searching for missing enslaved people. Because the legal enterprise was enhanced, so they were protected more.
Right,
it really meant that if you stopped,
and that was a federal law. Too.
Yeah,
that wasn't a state law.
Yeah, exactly. So if you stopped a slave catcher,
so that's why I was saying that at that point, nowhere was safe.
Yeah, if you stopped a slave catcher in the execution of their duties, you were up for prison time. Which
Jesus,
I don't know if you know anything about America, bud. Especially in fucking Boston.
Nothing. I know nothing.
But I just have this feeling that in Boston, Massachusetts, if you had a group of people that were already dedicated to fighting armed men that showed up for stuff.
Yeah, prison time wasn't a deterrent.
Yeah, exactly. So when they're like, hey, you got to let them do their thing. They're like, yeah, fuck you.
Yeah. Go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself. We'll do what we want. This is our city.
You're in Boston now. Boston, Mass. The fuck out of here.
So the northern states were being swarmed, and in response, vigilance committees were set up all over the fucking place. For example, Garrett Smith called the Fugitive Slave Convention of 1850 on behalf of the New York State Vigilance Committee. So in 1850, he had a fugitive slave convention that was like, hey, if you're a fugitive slave, come on down. We got your back here in New York. Which was true. It was like they all showed up and they were like, cool, now we got you guys, let's get you someplace safe.
Okay.
That's how the attitude was. Abolitionists were not fucking taking shit in the North.
Well, okay, I get this, but because we're talking about the Underground Railroad and because the whole thing with the Underground Railroad was it seems weird to project something like a runaway slaves, free slave. What was it called? The convention,
Fugitive Slave Convention.
Fugitive Slave Convention. Yeah. To project that in a time when slave hunters could convene upon that space.
Well, that just goes to show.
All.
Dude, no, because that goes to show specifically the balls out intention of the abolitionists of the time.
And I guess how hardcore they were about come on over.
Yeah, New York.
See what happens
New York, they're like, yeah, here's a convention.
Hey,
bring all the fugitive slaves.
See what fucking happens to you.
Why don't you come show up? Show up and try and get some.
Show up to this fucking
because
convention. I fucking dare you.
Not only is it like, yeah, we've got the biggest group of people that will kill you.
We also got the biggest fucking dicks up here in New York.
Yeah, we also have a fuckload of fugitive slaves. So if you want to try something, we'll give them a shot too. Yeah. You better bring the biggest army of slave catchers you can think of.
You know how a lot of this is based upon the fact that you guys are afraid of black people? Yeah. We got a bunch.
We got a whole bunch of them. We're going to give them weapons.
And we'll give them bats and chains and stuff. Come on down.
So, okay. We've been talking a lot about the protections and the legal things going on in the North to protect fugitive slaves, but we got to talk about some real escapes,
okay?
And the people in the shit guiding them out.
Okay.
And I want to mention quickly that it's not as if enslaved people were just sitting idly by waiting to be rescued.
Sure,
it's very much not the case. There were multiple slave rebellions and uprisings.
Mm-hmm.
Enslaved people organized rebellions as early as the 18th century. In 1739, enslaved people led the Stono Rebellion in South Carolina, the largest slave rebellion during the colonial era in North America. The colonial era? The largest slave rebellion during the colonial era in North America.
You got it.
So the Stono Rebellion was a slave revolt that began on the 9th of September in 1739 in the colony of South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
It was the largest slave rebellion in the southern colonial period, with 25 colonists and 35 to 50 African slaves killed.
Wow.
The uprising's leaders were likely from the Central African Kingdom of Congo.
Okay.
Right, as they were Catholic and some spoke Portuguese. So these were transcontinentally shipped slaves. They were not like born and bred in captivity.
Right.
This is your classic kind of like Amistad.
Yeah.
They got shipped directly from Africa.
Toss them on a ship, bring them over.
Yeah, exactly. So the leader of the rebellion.
Goddamn Portuguese.
The goddamn Portuguese. Every time.
Fucking,
what is it? Spanish? Is it French? Figure it out.
Fuck you.
Pick a major language, Portuguese. Sorry, I know you're Brazilian.
Yeah.
So the leader of the rebellion was named Jemmy, but he was a literate enslaved man. And in some reports, he's referred to as Cato, and likely that was
his slave name.
Well, he was likely held by the Cato family, who lived near the Ashley River north of the Stono River. He led 20 other enslaved Congolese, who may have been former soldiers, in an armed march south from the Stono River.
Armed?
Yeah.
They were stashing guns?
No.
What were they armed with?
Choppy
Sticks?
things.
Choppy things.
They were bound for Spanish Florida, where successive proclamations had promised freedom for fugitive slaves from British North America.
Yeah.
They were actually headed for St. Augustine.
Yeah.
So Jemmy and his group recruited nearly 60 other slaves and killed more than 20 whites before being intercepted and defeated by the South Carolina militia near the Edisto River.
Jesus.
But other rebellions followed, including the one led by Gabriel Prosser in Richmond in 1800, Denmark Vesey in Charleston in 1822. These were brutally repressed, as their uprisings are wont to be. Pretty much the history of uprisings everywhere in the world always is, you probably get a few, and then they're going to, stomp you.
Oh, yeah. Iron fist.
But the revolt that most terrified enslavers, the immortal Iron Fist from Marvel Comics?
No.
Oh.
Different one.
Danny Rand? No?
The very mortal Iron Fist.
The revolt that most terrified enslavers was led by a man named Nat Turner in Southampton County, Virginia.
That's where I thought you were going with this.
Yeah. This is the big one.
Yeah.
And there's a great movie called Birth of a Nation that you can check out. Actually, it's fucking not the first Birth of a Nation. The first one is about how the KKK were awesome. It's the next one that's about the slave revolt. That's the one you're looking for.
Okay.
A little more current. I think it was like 2010 or something.
Yikes. Was that Ken Burns? Was that a Ken Burns joint?
No. Ken Burns probably did a documentary on this. I haven't checked.
I'm sure he did.
But the movie Birth of a Nation is just it's a dramatic reenactment.
I didn't know if that was a Ken Burns documentary.
It's a film with some people from some other movies.
Okay. I got you.
What are they called? Actors. They're actors in it.
Yes.
Did not actually hire Nat Turner. He died.
Oh, no.
Before the movie could be made,
Shit.
unfortunately. So in Southampton County, Virginia, in August 1831, Turner's group, which eventually numbered as many as 50 black men, murdered some 55 white people in 2 days before armed resistance from local white people and the arrival of state militia forces overwhelmed them.
Goddamn.
Nat Turner was enslaved in South Compton. South Compton.
Oh, my God.
Beat of a Nation. He thought that revolutionary violence would force whites to acknowledge the brutality of slavery, which is pretty legit. That's kind of how
oppressors look at things.
I know that. Well, Pat, you and we've always had slightly different takes on the necessity of violence, I believe. Mine is kill. A big kill them all.
Yeah, mine is a more measured approach, but not that I'm any less prone to say, fuck it. Listen, lately I've had a lot of those thoughts, but you can't just go nuts.
Well, Turner said he wanted to spread terror and alarm among whites, which would, make him a terrorist.
Yeah.
But he was also a rebelling slave. So, two halves of a coin on that one.
Suddenly terrorism looks not so bad, huh?
Here on Delete Everything podcast, so Turner began communicating his plans.
I really thought you were going to support
No,
terrorists.
I wasn't going to say it. I was going to let that one exist in the mind of the listener. We do, though. Turner began...
Jesus.
We don't.
No, we don't.
We don't. Well, I guess it depends. Turner began communicating his plans to a small circle of trusted fellow slaves.
Timothy McVeigh really so bad?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Yeah, I think he fucking was. What a prick.
No shit.
So Turner began communicating his plans to like a small group of trusted fellow slaves. All his initial recruits were other slaves from his neighborhood. And these scattered men had to find ways to communicate their intention without revealing the plot. Songs may have tipped the neighborhood members to movements.
Oh, we're going to kill Whitey every day. We're going to kill him. We're going to make him pay. We're going to kill some whites. Going to kill some whites. Going to make them real scared. And we'll chop off their feet. Were those the songs?
Yeah, I mean, you know this story, huh? That's exactly the songs they would sing.
They'll never know what we're talking
about.
Chop
off Whitey's feet is a classic slave hymnal.
It should be. That's speaking of tone deaf. I'm so hopped up on cough syrup right now.
So
Jesus Christ.
It's believed that one of the ways that Turner summoned fellow conspirators to the woods was through the use of particular songs, according to author Terry Bisson.
You want me to make him another one?
You want to do another one?
No.
How much Dayquil are you on right now?
Enough.
Yeah, can you get a little more soulful?
I didn't use a measuring cup.
Can you do another one, but do it a little more soulful, please? A little less shuck and jive and a little more like...
Come on out to the woods. We're going to talk about killing some whites. So come on out to the woods. We're going to make this slavery thing right. We're going to kill some whites. Going to kill the babies too. We're going to chop off their feet.
Oh, back to the feet. Big up chopping feet.
We're going to chop off their feet and cover them in poo. Send them down the river and fuck them some more. And set their houses on fire. That's it. That's the song.
According to author Terry Bisson, Turner entrusted his wife Cherry with his most secret plans and papers. And according to a report by James Trevant, immediately following the uprising, Cherry said that Nat had been digesting a plan for the revolt for years. So this is a long time coming. Patrick is a person of color. Turner eagerly anticipated God's signal to slay my enemies with their own weapons.
That's fucking crazy.
His exact words. He's God's signal to slay my enemies.
Yeah, God's going to tell me when it's time.
With their weapons.
That's fucking...
So he began preparations.
That's like some Quentin Tarantino movie shit.
That's some hard shit, man. And frankly, if I had been enslaved and subjugated and beaten and whipped and humiliated my entire life... And you met
some guy named Nat who was like,
yo, we're going
to
take their shit and kill them with it. I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah, you seem like a good guy.
What else have I got going on? I would have fucking just work in the mud and then die.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
Kill them all.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, there were intermittent beatings.
Oh, yeah, to spice things up.
Can't let you get bored.
Beginning in February of 1831, Turner interpreted, say that 10 times fast, Turner interpreted atmospheric conditions as signs to prepare for the revolt. Turner interpreted.
Like it got real cold outside, or
no? He interpreted atmospheric conditions such as an annual solar eclipse on February 22nd of 1831, which is visible in Virginia and much of the southeastern United States.
A solar eclipse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Turner envisioned this as a black man's hand reaching over the sun.
Oh.
Which is dope as fuck. All this imagery is cool. It is primeval in a way that I truly respect, and is very Game of Thrones in a lot of ways.
And he's like, "That's my fucking sign right there." Yeah. What is that shit?
But listen, it is. I don't want to be disrespectful towards this man in any respect,
right?
But the conditions in which slaves would be kept were not great, to say the least.
I don't think that's disrespectful to anyone.
But it was like a state of sort of primeval living, even
right?
That is not cool for people to have to live in. But anyone can tell you that if you're just fucking camping essentially all the time,
right,
you start to get a little more wild.
Right.
You know?
Do we know what Nat Turner's education level was?
I do not. I'd have to look that up.
Because we have talked about this in a previous episode when you went to this solar eclipse last year. even knowing what you know about exactly what's causing that, you talked about how sort of like visceral of a moment
it kind of makes you crazy.
And so, like, I don't know what Nat Turner's education level was, but I know that typically slaves were not allowed any education whatsoever.
So Nat Turner was able to learn to read and write with the permission of his owner, Benjamin Turner.
Okay.
His education was more extensive than most slaves.
Okay.
He was taught about Christianity and religion, learned to read and write.
Okay.
He became a preacher, and he had a strong voice for the enslaved people on the Turner plantation. He was often seen reading the Bible, praying, fasting. So his ability to read the Bible allowed him to find stories of divine support for fights against injustice.
Well, and the Bible would also indicate to him that a solar eclipse is definitely God's signal.
It would definitely like give him like, hey, God will tell you to kill your fucking oppressors. We do it all the time.
I was more thinking along the lines of like, did he have an education level that he would know what was causing a solar eclipse? Or is it just, going back to like a more tribal time, pre-science, where this was just some crazy sign from God or the gods?
I would say
that something
it is
shit was about to go down.
It is probable that at this time he wouldn't know he might know the idea behind like, the moon moving between the sun and the earth, but like it wouldn't be like, well, that's just science.
Right.
It'd be like, well, this is a divine
right.
rationale. For me to witness this is something spectacular.
Absolutely.
So illness prevented Turner from starting the rebellion as planned on Independence Day, on July 4th in 1831, which would have been cool.
He was like, I know what day we're doing.
He's like, yeah, we're doing some America shit in America right now.
God damn.
The conspirators used the delay to extend planning, and on August 13th, an atmospheric disturbance made the Virginia sun appear bluish-green, possibly the result of a volcanic plume produced by the eruption of Ferdinandia Island off the coast of Sicily.
Okay.
Turner took this as a divine signal and started the rebellion a week later.
Okay.
The rebellion expanded from several trusted slaves to over 70 enslaved and free blacks, some of whom were on horseback.
Wow.
They were armed with knives, hatchets, and blunt instruments. Firearms were too difficult to collect and would have drawn unwanted attention.
Sure.
The rebels killed white people without discrimination by age or sex.
Oof.
Turner's slave owner and his family were the first to be killed. The rebels then traveled from house to house, freeing slaves and killing whites. Historian Stephen B. Oates writes that Turner called on his group to kill all the white people.
God damn. Well, here's the thing. It's one of my big criticisms of the war on terror. And by the way, the end note on this is not kill children, but it is that whenever you have people killing indiscriminately and, children see their family home firebombed and, all these, take this recent Israel-Palestine thing. All you're doing is creating more people who fucking hate you.
Yeah. That's usually how conflict like this goes, especially when it, is
so
killing.
If you kill the slave owner and leave the children, what are they going to, they're going to live another 60, 70 years. What are their feelings toward blacks going to be?
Yeah, that's sort of so God,
not
fuck.
that, I mean.
Think about during abolitionary shit when, they're like, yeah, we have to free the slaves, and these people come up and they're like, slaves murdered my family in front of me.
Right. So, all I'm going to say is that there are arguments to be made for a scorched earth policy. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it personally, but I don't want anybody being like, Patrick Wall loves when people kill children. That's not what I want the takeaway to be here.
No one would have said that but you ever.
I'm just saying that I get it where they were like, we got to kill everybody.
I'm not saying I love when children are murdered, but I get it.
I'm just trying to have a dialogue here, man.
I am not vilifying or what's the word I'm looking for?
Deifying?
Deifying? No.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's wrong. That would be deifying would be like adding a religious connotation. Vilifying would be like, that's bad. And then goodifying?
Yeah, that's it.
Goodifying. I am not goodifying or vilifying anything Nat Turner did because it's historical context and it's not my fucking job.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just trying to have a dialogue.
Suck my ass.
So there's on one hand you can go, killing ladies and kids is not nice, and you shouldn't do that. But then, can you blame a guy who's been enslaved his entire fucking life and has finally had enough and got enough, people and clubs and axes and shit together to go, fuck this shit, we're killing everybody?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know the answer.
Kill. I don't know. I don't know. I have a feeling that in a similar state, I would probably be the same. If I were there, things wouldn't have been different. Like in a similar state, like I think that even philosophically, if you put me in a situation like that where my people I love have been murdered and tortured in front of me, I've been enslaved my whole life and beaten and humiliated, and I got a chance to just kind of fucking machete somebody, I'd just start hacking.
Just clear the court.
Yeah,
huh?
Hey, who's next? I was playing.
Come here, little girl with the pigtails.
I was playing Hitman Absolution yesterday.
Good game.
Yeah, it was a good game. I was playing Hitman 2 for the PS5, which is fun, but it's a little more on the planny.
Mm-hmm.
Hitman Absolution's a little more like, hey, get into it, have fun, sandbox it. And there's one that's like, it's called the King of New York. You go into this like big open area in Chinatown in New York, I guess, and you got to kill one guy, and there's a bunch of different ways you can do it.
Okay.
Hitman is an assassin video game.
One.
If anyone remembers. It's like you walk into it's like the second level. You walk in, it's a big group of people. There's fucking 200 people, and you like blend in. You go around. There's like,
this is the one where they're having the party.
No, I don't know. But you can get like a sniper rifle and pop them from a window, or you can like poison them with fugu, or
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I had this. Well,
I've played that game. That's why I'm trying to remember exactly which level it was.
Yeah, good game. But I bought it for $11.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an old game at this point.
It's an old game. I tried to play Hitman Blood Money. Oh boy, is that outdated. Anyhow, there's neither here nor there.
That one was one of my jams.
I walk into this big extended thing. I try to kill the guy. I fuck it up. Cops start coming at me. So I just pull out the two guns and I just start blazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I take out all the police force.
Doesn't end well. Usually.
And then it's just 200 people just kind of sitting, just don't kill me, just hanging out there.
Yeah.
And you get
cowering in the corners.
Cowering in the corners, like I could probably walk out of here. But then I thought, witnesses. So I meticulously slaughtered every single one of them.
Oh my god!
And this isn't a passionate. This is very cold blooded. They're not people. They're digital inconveniences. So just stab. I used a knife. Stab. Every one of them.
Good. Not at all like a psychopath. I got it.
Exactly. It's just a rational.
Why waste bullets? I got a knife.
Forward,
I
rational.
I can slash people.
Just it just makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
According to the Richmond Enquirer, Turner declared that indiscriminate slaughter was not their intention after they attained a foothold and was resorted to in the first instance to strike terror and alarm. So it was like a shock and awe approach.
Okay.
Which is like any government would do the same thing, drop some indiscriminate bombs, fucking get some attention real quick.
Right.
But these are poor people with fucking hack and slashy weapons, hammers and shit. Right. A few homes were spared because Turner believed the poor white inhabitants thought no better of themselves than they did of Negroes.
Okay.
The rebels also avoided the Giles Reese plantation, even though it was en route, likely because Turner wanted to keep his wife and children safe.
Okay.
Turner confessed to killing only one person, Margaret Whitehead, whom he killed with a blow from a fence post.
Jesus.
Yes. The last house to be attacked was the Rebecca Vaughn house. The state militia suppressed the rebellion at Belmont Plantation on the morning of August 23rd. The rebels killed between 55 and 65 white people before being defeated by the militia, making it the deadliest slave revolt in U.S. history.
Wow.
The militia had twice the manpower of the rebels and 3 companies of artillery. Turner was not immediately captured. He survived in hiding for more than 30 days afterward. And
oof, I don't like that.
He escaped and was later caught and hung.
Yeah,
I feel like it'd be more like a little more like a noble ending if he was part of
die in mortar fire with the rest of your guys.
Yeah, well, what are you going to do?
Nothing now.
I mean, you kind of wanted to get the fuck out of there. That's sort of the whole point.
But I mean, like I said, I don't like that he got away when so many people died.
That's an interesting point because he didn't get away. He only got away for a little while, hid in terror,
right? For 30 days,
scrounged like an animal in the woods for 30 days.
He got away from the initial assault from the militia that had double the manpower. So that begs the question: how and why?
Yeah. Well, we really like our history to be a clean cut, meticulous. Like you want Nat Turner to be the hero, and in a way he was. He also
might have turned tail at the end.
I don't know how you feel about
people are complex.
the children of slave owners. Yeah, people are complex. And we here at Delete Everything Podcast staunchly believe that context is very, very important.
Mm-hmm.
And again, not vilifying Nat Turner or goodifying Nat Turner. What the fuck is the word for that?
Deifying.
It's not deifying. Deifying is like thinking of as a god or raising up to a replacement.
Not necessarily.
Absolving?
Sure.
Yeah, not doing any of them shits. But anyway, that's how that went down. So like with previous rebellions, in the aftermath of the Nat Turner Rebellion, slave owners
Things got real hard for slaves.
Yeah, all of a sudden it was like, oh man, I'm chained. I got to work in this field.
Yeah, Jesus.
Fuck. So
there's that iron fist.
Slave owners feared similar insurrections, and the southern states passed further legislation prohibiting the movement and assembly of enslaved people. And that was in 1831 in Virginia. So it would stand to reason that word of something that dramatic may have found its way 200 miles north to a then 9-year-old girl named Harriet Tubman.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a little section I like to call Talking Tubs. So what do you know about Harriet Tubman?
I know that she escaped slavery as a younger woman, and she went back a whole fucking bunch of times to get slaves and bring them back to free states. And she was kind of a badass, and she didn't take no shit from anybody, whether you were a slave or a slave hunter.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Delete Everything.
Oh, come on. I didn't say that was the whole shebang. I didn't say full stop.
I mean, you did cover it pretty well, though. Harriet Tubman was born, her birth name was Araminta. She was born Araminta Ross in March 1822. She was an American abolitionist and social activist. After escaping slavery, Tubman made some 13 missions to rescue approximately 70 enslaved people, including her family and friends. So using the network of anti-slavery activists and safe houses known collectively as the Underground Railroad, during the American Civil War, she served as an armed scout and spy for the Union Army, which is badass.
Yeah.
And in her later years,
I thought it was more than 13.
Well, that's just 13 separate trips for 70 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Wild, yeah.
And that's just one solo person doing that by themselves, not counting any other further organization, supply runs, organizational things.
Spying.
Yeah, I mean, she was an armed scout and spy.
That's badass.
What was she do? What was her spying thing, though, you think? That's what I want to know. Is like, was she able to like infiltrate like plantations?
I mean, if you've got 100 slaves out in the field,
I just figured I figure she must have just like had a preternatural power for stealth. You know, just like fucking the ability to move states without being noticed, move people out of those states, fucking just balls out just at night in the woods, just like fucking Batman.
I mean, but again, aren't there stories of like her bringing freed slaves and like I want to say, isn't there a story with like someone who had like a crying child? And she was like,
I'll fucking
I'm going to kill that baby if you don't.
Yeah, I've heard that same thing. Yeah. I will admit that I did a cursory look at Harriet Tubman, and there are a shitload of stories about her anecdotes, firsthand accounts, and I'm saving those for the next episode.
Okay.
Because that's the juice right there.
Right,
Our next episode is Tales of the Underground Railroad.
Sure.
We're just trying to get us up to... setting all the chess pieces up so we can knock them all down at the final episode, right?
Right.
So, born into slavery in Dorchester County, Maryland, Tubman was beaten and whipped by enslavers as a child. Early in life, she suffered a traumatic head wound when an irate overseer threw a heavy metal weight intending to hit another slave, but hit her instead.
Jesus Christ.
The injury caused dizziness, pain, and spells of hypersomnia, which occurred throughout her life. After her injury, Tubman began experiencing strange visions and vivid dreams, which she ascribed to premonitions from God.
Okay.
Dude, in the right context, like you talk about like her and Nat Turner in the same kind of breath, it really just sounds like some old school biblical shit.
It does.
It's like some Moses shit going on.
It does.
These experiences, combined with her Methodist upbringing, led her to becoming devoutly religious.
Okay.
In 1849, Tubman escaped to Philadelphia, only to return to Maryland to rescue her family soon after. Slowly, one group at a time, she brought relatives with her out of the state and eventually guided dozens of other enslaved people to freedom. Tubman, or Moses as she was called, codename Moses, traveled by night and in extreme secrecy, and later said she never lost a passenger.
Yeah.
After the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was passed, she helped guide escapees farther north into British North America or Canada and helped newly freed people find work. Tubman met John Brown in 1858 and helped him plan and recruit supporters for his 1859 raid on Harper's Ferry.
Real quick side note, I think it's really cool that like a lot of the quotes from Harriet Tubman, she speaks in terms of like the Underground Railroad, like as if it was a real railroad. Like what you just said, she never lost a passenger.
Yeah.
She used to refer to herself as a conductor.
Conductor, yeah.
Yeah. I think that was really fucking cool.
And that's like, that also...
That's just good branding, baby.
I mean...
That's just solid marketing.
You know, okay, so the context we're always talking about, right? It's like, I believe strongly that people with legends like this...
Yeah.
Because if you think of the Underground Railroad, you don't have any choice but to immediately be like, oh, Harriet Tubman.
Think of a train, yeah.
Harriet Tubman, right.
Train. Yes,
yeah,
also Harriet Tubman.
Also trains. You think of Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
There's no way that she wasn't a huge part of that branding. You know, she already knew, by that time, she knew she was on the Underground Railroad. That's what she was working with. So she's working in that context to conductors, stations, stopovers, tickets,
stations.
shit like that. Like,
that's so cool.
Yeah. Never lost a passenger, that kind of shit. That's her using those terms to like sell that sort of mythos.
That's
because a mythos is what's going to get you taken care of. If it's just like, yeah, I'm freeing slaves, people will be like, that's crazy. That's illegal as fuck. But if you're like, we're with a secret organization called the Underground Railroad that frees enslaved people from the South and their bondage.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, fuck. That's cool as shit.
Yeah. Sign me up.
Fuck yeah. Choo choo.
That's our second choo choo.
Chugga 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 chugga.
You sound like you're in a club in Miami.
Sounded like, was that song Steppenwolf? Woot woot. When the Civil War began, Tubman worked for the Union Army first as a cook and a nurse, and then as an armed scout and spy. For her guidance of the raid at Combahee Ferry, which liberated more than 700 enslaved people.
Okay.
Try that again. For her guidance of the raid, which means she led people there and like kept them quiet for the raid, and eventually like helped spring it. Freed 700 people.
That's wild.
She's widely credited as the first woman to lead an armed military operation in the United States. After the war, she retired to the family home on property she had purchased in 1859 in Auburn, New York, where she cared for her aging parents. She was active in women's suffrage until illness overtook her, and was admitted to a home for elderly African Americans, which she had helped establish years earlier.
Jeez.
Tubman is commonly viewed as an icon of courage and freedom.
I mean, you think of the times.
Yeah.
That's just fucking breaking every goddamn shackle, both literal and figurative.
Yeah, just like the hardest bitch you ever met in your fucking life.
I'm a black woman in the 1800s, and let me show you how to get shit done.
And I love that, like the stories you hear of her also are that she's hard as nails. She's like, I'll kill that baby. Shut the fuck up. You know, but like at the same time, you find out like, yeah, and also she retired so she could take care of her aging parents.
Yeah.
She's a nurse. She like, you know, like she started a facility for aging black people. Like,
it's almost like humans are complex.
Yeah. Well, I mean, she's hard as nails, but like with a huge capacity for empathy.
Well,
you know?
I mean, she wouldn't have done, I would imagine.
Yeah, because
if she didn't have that capacity,
you can just go.
Right. If she didn't have that capacity to actually deeply care about people, then what the fuck would be her incentive to go back after being free?
Yeah.
Maybe one day everyone will fucking talk about how cool I was. Nobody thinks that way.
No.
Or I mean, maybe you think that way, but you're certainly not going to put it into action where you put your fucking life on the line.
Do you think that, like the first time that she was like suiting up, putting on her signature floppy hat, just looking in the mirror,
a white blouse,
you know, it's like that Civil War mirror, you know, it's got like the spots in it.
Yeah,
and shit.
yeah.
You know, she's looking at it and she just hears in her head like, tick, 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 tick. She goes, choo choo, motherfucker, and then that heads out on the. I don't think any of that.
Is it weird that everything's sepia toned in my brain?
That's how everything looked back then.
All right, yeah.
That's it. Nothing was color until 1985.
Everything was shades of brown and orange.
Exactly. So that's an absurdly brief synopsis of an incredibly interesting life. We have to do that sometimes. It was at this point in my research that I decided we needed to do 3 episodes.
Okay.
Because I was looking at Harriet Tubman shit, and I was like, this is an episode unto itself. We kind of probably should have done an episode just on her, but I digress.
We might still.
So I'm getting all this glorious context set up, but, what about the stories? What about the close calls and all that shit? Families on the run, citizens risking their lives to shelter. It's like at the end of the movie Horizon with Kevin Costner when, it's like setting up all these things, and then you get the big music and people riding horses and guns.
I'm so fucking sick of Horizon.
You haven't even seen it.
Yeah, I know. You've ruined it for
really
me.
Not very good. It's really not a very good movie.
You've ruined it for me by way of talking about it every episode for months now.
But anyway, that kind of shit, that's the fucking juice, and that's what I really want to do. That being said, I believe I did promise on the last episode that we would discuss a big crazy fuck chopping up slave owners with a sword.
Yeah, we did. John Brown.
So we'll do some Harriet next week, but today let's close it out with some John Brown. We've mentioned John Brown before.
Yes.
He was a Mormon abolitionist that we mentioned in Westward Expansion, I believe. But I'm absolutely going to cover more of him in the third episode, because there's a lot of
John Brown.
There's a lot with crazy old John, because I fucking love him, and he did no wrong in my eyes.
Remember, people are complicated.
There is a saying, John Brown did no wrong.
Yeah.
Part of
I'll bet you we can find things.
Oh yeah, you can find things with anybody, but
yeah,
I like a lot of what he did, especially the sword stuff.
Never meet your heroes. There are a lot of sayings about not putting people up on a pedestal.
So John Brown was born May 9th, 1800, and died December 2nd, 1859.
Okay.
He was an American abolitionist in the decades preceding the Civil War, first reaching national prominence in the 1850s for his radical abolitionism and fighting in the Bleeding Kansas conflict.
Sure. We talked about Bleeding Kansas.
Yeah. Brown was like fucking most of Bleeding Kansas.
Yeah.
Like John Brown is Bleeding Kansas.
Good.
He bled Kansas. That Jimmy Eat World album, Bleed American?
Yeah, no.
This is Johnny Eat World and is Bleed Kansas.
Okay.
So Brown was captured, tried, and executed by the Commonwealth of Virginia for raiding and in the incitement of a slave rebellion at Harper's Ferry, Virginia in 1859. It was a massive raid and massacre. An evangelical Christian of strong religious convictions, Brown was profoundly influenced by the Puritan faith of his upbringing. He believed that he was an instrument of God, raised to God. Get these three motherfuckers together, and it's just like
so much instruments of God.
This is just old school biblical shit. I mean, like, you get enough prosecution and slavery together, and you got some fucking biblical shit going on.
Well, and also, you're talking about a much more religious time in general.
Yeah, that's true. But again, with the prosecution and the persecution and the
yeah.
So he believed that he was an instrument of God, raised to strike the death blow to slavery in the United States.
Wow.
A sacred obligation. Brown was the leading exponent of violence in the American abolitionist
millions of slaves
movement.
At this point. I mean,
yeah,
that's a big task.
He's like, I'm the guy.
Jesus.
Talk about white privilege. He's like, no, I'm the one that's going to strike the death blow with my sword.
Yeah, Jesus.
I don't know why he sounds like, in my head, he sounds like Danny DeVito. He's like, with my sword. I'm John Brown. So he was the leading exponent of violence in the American abolitionist movement. He promoted violence. He's like, fuck yeah, violence. Kill, kill, kill. Sword, sword, sword.
Okay.
He believed it was necessary to end slavery after decades of peaceful efforts had failed.
Fair.
I mean, fair, right? Brown said
see where you get to that point.
Brown said that in working to free the enslaved, he was following Christian ethics, including the Golden Rule and the Declaration of Independence, which states that all men are created equal. He stated that in his view, these two principles meant the same thing. Do unto others, and all men being created equal. I think what he was trying to say there was that
I would love to have this guy chop my head off, so I'm going to chop his head off.
As I would have done unto me, he says, well, if I was a slave owner, I would have me chopped up with a fucking sword.
With a fucking sword.
Do unto others as I would have done unto me. Unto me I would have a sword chop me the fuck up.
Okay.
That's what I say, done unto me. And if they're created equal to me, then they get chopped.
Jesus.
So Brown first gained national attention when he led anti-slavery volunteers and his sons during the Bleeding Kansas crisis of the late 1850s, which was, if we recall, a state-level civil war over whether Kansas would enter the Union as a slave state or a free state.
Yes, because Kansas had the option to choose, even though they were above the 3630 parallel.
Right. So John was dissatisfied with abolitionist pacifism, saying of pacifists, "These men are all talk. What we need is action." Action! It's just like that. These men are all talk. What we need is action, and then like a hyphen, and then action with an exclamation point.
That's his actual
These
quote?
men are all talk. What we need is action. Action! Action! In May 1856, Brown and his sons killed 5 supporters of slavery in the Potawatomi Massacre, a response to the sacking of Lawrence, Kansas by pro-slavery forces.
Wow.
Yeah. Brown then commanded anti-slavery forces at the Battle of Blackjack and the Battle of Osawatomie. So yeah, there's a lot of John Brown, but I guess I just want to get into one good, because I promised it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get into one real good crazy man hacking people up with sword story.
Okay.
And that would be the Potawatomi Massacre.
Okay.
So the Potawatomi Massacre, Potawatomi Massacre occurred on the night. Hydrogrow, Home Hobby Healthcare, Home Hobby Hydroponic Solutions. Home Hobby Hydroponic Solutions. Potawatomi.
Fun with Home Hobby Hydroponics.
Hydrogrow. Fun with Home Hobby. So the Potawatomi Massacre. The frontal lobotomy.
I cut out all that hydrogrow shit.
The hippopotami.
What? I don't even remember doing it. The Potawatomi Massacre occurred on the night of May 24th to 25th, 1856, which is my birthday.
Really?
Not 1856.
I knew that part.
May 25th. The night of the Potawatomi Massacre. God, I'm glad to know that. I'm gonna get that tattooed on my fucking chest in the Kansas territory.
You're gonna start a band called Bleeding Kansas? You do metal covers of Carry On My Wayward Son?
It's just going to be Jimmy Eat World songs. Bleed
Not Kansas songs?
In reaction to the sacking of Lawrence, Kansas by pro-slavery forces on May 21st and the telegraphed news of the severe attack on Massachusetts Senator Charles Sumner, which happened, John Brown and a band of abolitionist settlers, some of them members of the Potawatomi Rifles, which is a good band name, responded violently. Just north of Potawatomi Creek in Franklin County, they abducted and killed 5 pro-slavery settlers, 3 of them former slave catchers. One teenage son of one of the settlers was also abducted by Brown and his fellow perpetrators, but was ultimately spared.
Okay.
This soon became the most famous of the many violent episodes of the Bleeding Kansas period, during which a state level...
Do we know the son's name?
I do not.
It'd be cool to find out what he did after that.
I bet you he kept on wanting slavery. I don't know. Do you think, like...
Teenager, he's, you're changing your mind about a lot of things as a teenager. Because, was one of the guys that got killed his father?
Yes.
So, oof. So you watched your dad get killed, and probably a bunch of his buddies, and then you got kidnapped, ultimately let go after who knows what. I don't know. Do you harbor a bunch of resentment for that? And if you do, does that translate into, I still want slaves? Or does that translate into, you know what, I'm just going to fucking sit this one out because this is clearly a very convoluted and complex fucking issue that I don't know how to feel about?
Actually, perhaps this letter to John Brown from Mahala Doyle, the wife of one of the men that he executed.
Is it the mother of this particular child? Or
yes.
Is it? Oh, it is. Okay.
So the letter of Mahala Doyle to John Brown when he was in jail awaiting execution November 20th of 1859. Although vengeance is not mine, I confess that I do feel gratified to hear that you were stopped in your fiendish career at Harper's Ferry. With the loss of your 2 sons, you can now appreciate my distress. In Kansas, when you then and there entered my house at midnight and arrested my husband and 2 boys and took them out of the yard and in cold blood shot them dead in my hearing, you can't say you done it to free our slaves. We had none, and never expected to own one. But has only made me a poor, disconsolate widow with helpless children. Well, I feel for your folly. I do hope and trust that you will meet your just reward. Oh, how it pained my heart to hear the dying groans of my husband and children. If this scrawl give you any consolation, you are welcome to it. Postscript. My son John Doyle, whose life I begged of you, is now grown up and is very desirous to be at Charleston on the day of your execution, and would certainly be there if his means would permit it, that he might adjust the rope around your neck.
Huh. So so the husband was a slave hunter.
Yeah. Former slave hunter and anti-abolitionist.
Okay.
Like working in that capacity.
And they was trying to work with the pro-slavery movement in Kansas.
Yeah,
pre-statehood.
So the Potawatomi Massacre went as such. John Brown and his forces encamped the night before between two deep ravines on the edge of the timber some distance to the right of the main traveled road. There they remained unobserved until the following evening of May 24th. The party left their hiding places sometime after dark and proceeded on their secret expedition. Late in the evening, they called at the house of James P. Doyle and ordered him and his two adult sons, William and Drury, to go with them as prisoners. All three of the elder Doyle men were former slave catchers. Doyle's 16-year-old son, John, who was not a member of the pro-slavery Law and Order Party, was spared after his mother pleaded for his life. The three men were escorted by their captors into the darkness, where Owen Brown and his brother Frederick killed them with broadswords.
God damn.
John Brown Sr. did not participate in the stabbing, instead firing the coup de grace into the head of the fallen James Doyle.
Wow.
Brown and his band then went to the house of Allen Wilkinson and ordered him out. He was slashed and stabbed to death by Henry Thompson and Theodore Weiner. Possibly with help. Teddy Weiner. Theodore Weiner, possibly with help from Brown's sons. From there, they crossed the Potawatomi and, sometime after midnight, forced their way into the cabin of James Harris at Sword Point. Harris had three house guests, those John S. Reitman, Jerome Glanville, and William Sherman, the brother of Henry Sherman, or Dutch Henry, who was a militant pro-slavery activist. Glanville and Harris were taken outside for interrogation and asked whether they had threatened free state settlers, aided border ruffians from Missouri, or participated in the sack of Lawrence. Satisfied with their answer, Brown's men let Glanville and Harris return to the cabin. William Sherman, however, was led to the edge of the creek and hacked to death with swords by Weiner, Thompson, and Brown's sons.
Jeez. Brutal.
Having learned at Harris' cabin that Dutch Henry, their main target in the expedition, was away from home on the prairie, they ended the expedition. They returned to the ravine where they had previously encamped. They rejoined the Osawatomie Company on the night of May 25th. In the 2 years before the massacre, there had been 8 killings in Kansas territory attributed to slavery politics, and none in the vicinity of the massacre. Brown killed 5 in a single night, and the massacre was the match to the powder keg that precipitated the bloodiest period in bleeding Kansas history, 3 months of retaliatory raids and battles in which 29 people died.
Huh.
And you may ask, why are we talking about this nut job on the Underground Railroad episode? The fuck does he have to do anything? Because we'll cover it. It's context, baby.
Is that
on Talking Tubs with Patrick and Riley?
Hey, welcome back to Talking Tubs.
Hey, welcome back to Talking Tubs. Today we're going to be talking about Harriet Tubman. In any case, yeah, that's one of the many instances in which John Brown hacked slave owners to death with swords, or ordered them hacked.
Slave catchers.
Yes, slave catchers in this case, which I think that we attested earlier. Maybe not just as bad, but pretty gnarly.
Yeah, I mean, I could put them in the same. They certainly go in the same folder. You know, if you're.
yeah, under bad.
I'm chewing on a fucking cough drop right now.
I like that letter that the lady wrote from the wife. I especially like that she accentuated, like, we didn't own any slaves.
Yeah.
But, like, at a certain point, John Brown thought that he was at war, which he was. At this point, it was war.
Yeah.
Maybe
We've called Bleeding Kansas, and we aren't the only ones. So history books have pretty solidly covered this. Effectively, a precursor to the Civil War.
Yeah, it's a civil war on a state's level.
Yeah. So, and a lot of what happened in Kansas in the late 50s sort of like lent itself to, it fueled what ended up becoming the Civil War. You know, and obviously there's a lot of lead up to that too in terms of abolition and all that stuff, and the Underground Railroad, and it was sort of a powder keg that was just with a real long fuse, and that fuse is getting closer and closer and closer to the keg.
In terms of why John Brown would be important to the Underground Railroad, aside from being an organizer with abolitionists, meeting Harriet Tubman, who he called General Tubman,
Yeah.
I always fucking love that detail. He was securing the west of the United States as a free land to go to. To him, he was fighting for more than just like Kansas.
Right.
He's like, if we can hold it here and we can show that like we're going to fucking fight to keep abolition strong in this part, then we can access the whole West this way.
Well, and I also understand, so the whole reason why, I think we've talked about this at length, but the whole reason why Kansas was even at play, because at this point, legally, according to legal precedent, Kansas should not have been a slave state. It is above the legal markers for, differentiating slave and free states.
Right.
But because of westward expansion at the time, and because of what the United States needed agriculturally, and because of this giant expansion of big agricultural corporations that started even that long ago, you gotta go, well, I own a big ag business. This is about to become a state. It's a very ripe state, good soil.
Somebody can make a lot of money in this Kansas with enough slaves.
Yeah, how do we make as much money as possible? Let's make it a slave state. So suddenly they flip the script and go, well, why don't we let the state decide? And then immediately the state starts getting flooded with people from slave states trying to convince people, hey, we need to be a slave state, all really just to benefit giant agribusiness. And so I get being furious at that, because what the fuck are you talking about? You're literally breaking all the rules right now that have been established for some time now. For what? To subjugate more fucking people? So I get it if you're already anti-slavery, like that's got to be a line in the sand. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
So I understand where John Brown, again, just trying to get some context here and try and put myself in people's shoes. I understand where John Brown was like, well, fucking enough is enough, dude. So especially he was already ardently anti-slave as it was. So fucking
I feel like
crazy shit.
I feel like John Brown and Nat Turner had a very similar sort of like thought process in terms of shock and awe.
Yeah.
Like John had a gun. He could have just executed all of these people with the gun.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I think hacking them to death with broadswords will probably get the fucking point across.
Christ.
What do you think?
I mean, yeah, and make you think before you go to the next slave auction.
Yeah, so like imagine you're a former slave catcher, and you're like thinking like, hey, maybe Kansas will be a good place. They got anti-abolitionists up there. I can join the party, And then you're like, oh, wait, they're getting hacked to death with broadswords by big crazy bearded fucks?
Jesus Christ.
Jeez. Maybe not so much Kansas.
This is this has been a very intense, very heavy couple episodes.
I don't know what you mean. We're only talking about the most horrific human abuses and reactions to therefore in the entire history of the country.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, there's some native stuff that we're not covering here, but
there's some native stuff that we
covered
have
a lot
covered.
Of that. Yeah, we covered a lot of that.
I feel like we haven't done the natives an injustice thus far in 20-something episodes of this show. I feel like they've been represented, right?
Yeah, I want to make a joke there somehow, but I don't know.
If you're a Native American and you listen to this show, please send us a message, deleteeverythingpodcast@gmail.com. Let us know if you feel represented. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced the name of your tribe.
Yeah.
Is that it? Are we calling it for this one?
That's all I got. I think I'm tired, man.
Yeah,
You're sick.
I feel like
I was sick this weekend.
My voice has gotten more scratchy as we've been doing this.
I feel really clammy, and I don't think that talking about this horrible shit is helping me. Yeah, have you not heard me sniffling this whole time?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, I was sick all weekend, so we could be a little short. We had a long ass episode last week.
All right. Well, with that being said, I guess we will see you guys next week. Please
remember to rate, review, subscribe. We also have a Patreon.
Stepping on my toes, dog. Let me get my outro. Let's get off my outro. Let me get on this outro. Thank you guys for listening again. If you have not yet, please give us 5 stars on whatever you're listening to. Leave us a review. Say anything you like. Say what you liked about the show. Say what you didn't like about the show. Tell us what you want to hear in the future. We like all that stuff. Leave us a comment on Spotify. If you're listening on Spotify, you can comment on the the individual episodes. So leave us a comment. And find us on Instagram. We're under Delete Everything Podcast, and you can see basically stuff from the show. Every episode. Any episode that you're like, oh, I wonder what this guy looks like. You can find that. Today we dropped... No, that's not true. Today, by the time they hear this, it won't be today anymore. 2 weeks ago, we dropped John Edward Robinson, and we've got
Drop that motherfucker.
Yeah, I'd drop him off a fucking Empire State Building if I could. We dropped his episode, and so if you go to the Instagram, you can see photos of what that fat fuck looked like.
That guy sucked.
Yeah.
I wish that we were fucking mocking slave owners as mercilessly as we mocked John Edward Robinson.
I mean, if you want to bring the deeds of, where we can individually pick apart awful things that they've done, I'm willing to do that. I have no scruples about that.
I want to look up a slave owner real quick.
Okay. Also, if you want to support the show, patreon.com/Delete Everything Podcast. You'll find short episodes. Every week we post a short episode. We've done a couple on our main feed as bonus episodes. I think we did Hot Dog Rules and Lily Phillips. So if you listen to those, you'll see sort of like what it's a little more jokey, a little less research.
If you listen to the Patreon episodes backwards, you will find clues to the whereabouts of a person I murdered in the year 2007.
I didn't even know that. See, it was fucking. You learn something new on this podcast every day.
What am I supposed to fucking hand feed this to you? Come on, investigators.
At any rate, yeah, Patreon's where you'll find all that stuff, and every week you get a short episode. Other than that, man, I think. Do you want to talk about a slave owner, or do you want to leave it for next week?
The fuck is this? Okay, let's just go back to Philip Dalby of Virginia.
Okay, this was the guy who wrote the letter about the grave injustice visited upon him.
I heard he had a shriveled tiny little penis.
Oh, of course he did. I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Was he probably fucking 5'4" and fucking little Dalby?
Philip Dalby.
Dalby?
Hey, Philip Dalby.
Sounds like
fuck you.
Prissy little Englishman.
Bitch.
Hello, I'm Philip Dalby.
Oh, the injustice I have. Oh, no, Mumsy.
These people want me to not own property. This slave is like a coat. Coats and slaves, same thing. If you deprive me of one, you deprive me of everything.
You speak of liberty, but you want to steal my slave? All right, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Patrick is a person of color.